This video on circles, look at circles and their intersections with axes. Note that just like with the coordinate geometry of the line chapter, the x-axis can be represented by y equals 0 and the y-axis by x equals 0. So in our first example, we'll just find how to get where the circle intersects an axis. So here's an example. Where does x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 16 equals 0 intersect the y-axis? So of course, remember this just means using x equals 0. And we can simply substitute it straight in for any x's in the equation. So in this case, I'll end up with 0 squared plus y squared minus 6 times 0 minus 16 equals 0, which I can simplify to get y squared minus 16 equals 0. Now, I can factorize and solve this, so what type of factorization do I have here? That's the difference of two squares, and I can factorize it as y plus 4 by y minus 4 equals 0. And my two solutions for y here are minus 4 and plus 4. And of course, I started off by putting in 0 for x. So I can write these two answers as points, 0 minus 4 and 0, 4. And just bear in mind, I've run into a difference of two squares here. Often I'll encounter a quadratic as well. So here's your question. Where does x squared plus y squared plus 10x minus 2y minus 8 equals 0 intersect the y-axis? Pause the video here, do the question, and then check and see if you're correct. Again, remember that the y-axis can be represented by x equals 0. I'll replace my x's with zeros, and I can tidy this up then into, in this case, a quadratic. And now I need to factorize and solve this. And it factorizes as y minus 4 by y plus 2 equals 0. So I've got y equals 4 and y equals minus 2. And again, I'd like to write these as points. And I used a value of x that was 0 in both cases. So it's 0, 4 and 0 minus 2. The procedure to find the point of intersection with the x-axis is the exact same idea, except that in that case, you'll just use y equals 0. That's not the only type of question that we can encounter about where a circle intersects an axis. In this question, I've got a circle with a centre at 2, 0. I'm also told that it cuts off 6 units on the y-axis. Using just this information, I want to find its radius and I want to find its equation. It seems like I've got very little information, but I know more than I can see in the question to start off with. So first of all, I know that the circle is totally symmetrical. And so if the centre is at 2, 0, I must have equal distances above and below the x-axis. And so the endpoints of the intercept on the y-axis must be 0, 3 and 0, minus 3. And now to look at my diagram and see, is there any additional information that I can fill into the diagram, anything extra that I can draw in? Is there anything obvious that I can do? And I think the most obvious thing to do here is to draw a radius in. And so what's the most advantageous radius that I can draw? Well, I'm going to join 2, 0 to 0, 3. You could join it to 0 minus 3 either. But the reason that I'm doing this is to create a right angle triangle. And now I'll be able to use this quite basic information to work out the radius of the circle. I'm going to work it out on the basis of this right angle triangle. So I'm going to try and see, can I figure out any of the sides of this triangle? Well, here's the origin, and this point is this point is out at 2, 0. So it's at a distance of 2 from the origin. And this point 0, 3 is a distance of 3 from the origin. So now I can use Pythagoras to work out the length of the radius. And here the radius squared will be equal to 2 squared plus 3 squared. So the radius squared equals 13. So r equals root 13. Now that I know the radius, and I already have the centre, I can go ahead and find the equation. And of course my equation formula looks like this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. That of course is on page 19 in your log tables. It's a good plan to label these pieces of information before I fill them in. So I'll call them h, k and r. And I've got x minus 2 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals root 13 squared. The only thing here that I really need to tidy up is the root 13 squared. And since the 0 can be ditched, I'll ditch that now as well. But I don't actually have to multiply it out any further than this unless they specifically request it in the question. So a quick question for you now. So I've got a circle at the centre at 5, 0 and it cuts off an intercept of length 8 on the y-axis. We want to find its radius and equation. Pause the video here, give it a shot yourself, and then play and see if you're correct. So I've got 2 points there on the y-axis, just like in the previous question, 0, 4 and 0 minus 4 this time. I can draw in my triangle. Its sides are 4 and 5, so r squared equals 4 squared plus 5 squared. That makes 41, and the radius is root 41. Now I can go ahead and make the equation. Again, it's a good plan to label my pieces of information first. I fill it into the formula, and then I'll just tidy up a little bit to get x minus 5 squared plus y squared equals 41 in this case.